Welcome to the Coaching Minds podcast, brought to you by the Mental Training Plan, the podcast that provides coaches with the tools and techniques to help their athletes develop a strong mindset and perform at their best. Benny, that's a little bit different of an intro than what we've had in the past. It's good to be back in the saddle here. It's been a little while.
It has.
We've been off for a bit of time here. We've had lots of changes. I was just looking. January 8th of 2020, we started this thing, and now we're in a different house of yours, which isn't rare. That's like every other year. But lots of changes since the very first time that we've done this. We don't have a toilet pipe behind us flushing water.
There's drywall on the walls of this room.
There is. We have a camera going. We aren't stuffed behind one tiny little mic. Lots of changes. And we're 95 episodes in. Tons of things that have happened in those 95 episodes. I mean, you can share some of the big names and some of the things that we've learned in these 95 episodes. And as we're talking of that, we're transitioning kind of like with the intro, something new that has come about.
Yeah, and I got to be honest. Like when we sat down and recorded those first 6 episodes, I wasn't really I don't know that I was really certain that we were going to be making it into the high 90s and still be rolling. And I'm excited about what we've got. We actually have 3 episodes that are already recorded that we're just waiting to release after we kind of get through this little stretch right here where we're going to be talking specifically to coaches, and we're going to be looking at how can I put together a year-long program for my sport. But I had 3 or 4 different coaches reach out that were saying, hey, this is awesome stuff. And, I can't afford to bring you in to speak to my team, but I still want to be doing this stuff with my team, or I want to be doing this stuff with my players or my athletes. What resources can you get in my hands? And so the future of this podcast here is now going to shift a little bit. And, I think it'll still be beneficial for individual athletes to listen to, but it's certainly going to be focused more toward the coaches in our audience, maybe even potentially some parents that are trying to help their own kids with the mental side of their game. But I'm excited. It's been weird not seeing you every day.
Yeah, we've had a lot going on, transitioning from jobs for yourself, for myself. We've been linked for 10 years or whatever it may be through football, and transition out of that as in the upcoming season. I will no longer be coaching some football, and you've had some of the changes within your job. I think we've talked of it in some of the previous podcasts, but it's good to be back here. I'm excited for where it's going. Like you said, not to discredit anything from those first 95 podcasts.
Sure.
That is some very, very solid stuff that you really can't find elsewhere, to get personal kind of vulnerable interview with Tom Allen and some of those other guys, and some of the people we have sit down that just shared with us how they got to where they're at, how they handle those kids, how you can be better in certain moments, why you should do hard things, the things that you've overcome and your vulnerability of sharing. Excited though to see where this all goes, how we can influence, how we can impact, how you and I can get better in the upcoming ones. And yeah, I have to say, as we huddled around that one microphone that one day, I didn't think for the 96th time we'd probably be sitting here and there's camera. You got more TV or more screens up here than is at B-Dubs. But we're here with some good stuff going on.
All right, and so today we're going to be talking about what does a year-long program look like for my sport. And today we're going to be starting off with football. That's something that you and I have coached together that we're really comfortable with. I would say that was where my journey began in the mental side of the game, and then I quickly realized that we don't really have a football brain or a golf brain or a tennis brain. We just have a human brain. So I know we're also going to be having some brand new listeners who have never found us before that are interested in, hey, how do I develop the mental side of my football players. And so we're gonna be having some other episodes and some other sports that are coming up here soon. But for today, we're talking specifically to football coaches out there.
So Ben, let me ask you this: I'm the football coach. I'm trying to figure out. It's the off season or whatever. We're doing our evaluations. I know that we got beat last year because we just weren't mentally prepared. We weren't mentally tough enough for for the teams that we played. And so we're sitting down with the coaches like, all right, well, what are we going to do to be better next year? Yeah, we've got this whole weights program, or we did this great weight program last year, but we still have fallen short. What does a mental training program look like if I want to have this year-long something to prepare them in the off season, but also still during the season to continue to grow with that?
Yeah, if I'm trying to put together we'll call it a complete mental training program for football.
Are we talking like 365, or is it just the off season?
I'll be honest. It's kind of up to how much time do you have with your athletes. If you're coaching 1A football and it's the spring and all of your players are in a spring sport, that's very different than you're a college coach who's out there who's got, much
hours
more
a day with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Much more access. So I think, if coaches want some help from a scheduling perspective and they want to reach out, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. But I think less important is the time, or maybe I should say we're going to put less emphasis in this on the time frame, and I'm going to put more emphasis on somewhere you need to coach all of your players in these areas. These are kind of the main areas or the main topics that you're going to have to cover. And so, we're going to start off with the roadmap. You can think of the roadmap as where are we at right now and where are we trying to get to? And before we start hopping into actual tools and skills that we're going to use during practice or during games, it's more so, in football, I see this as like an off-season activity. I see this as preseason or, potentially as late as like August. But really, if the ideal time maybe would be start this in January and, figure out first, the first one is going to be like hopes, dreams, and ambitions is the first activity that we do. And we're trying to push our athletes beyond what they think is possible. Way too many times our athletes limit themselves to what, their parents think they can do or their peers think they can do or what they've done in the past. And, we want to ask them, we want to get them dreaming. We want them to be thinking like 5 years from now, what do you want to be able to look back on and say that you achieved? What do you want to be? What do you want to be able to do or to have, or who's the kind of person you want to be in the future? And then, the last piece, we want to ask them and push them specifically, like, what's something that seems out of reach that you would like to achieve someday? And, maybe that thing that they were gonna write down, but they were like, nah, that I can't do that. So that's the first activity. The second one, principles, passion, and purpose, we're really starting to iron out like who is the kind of person that they want to be, so the principles that they want to stand for, whether that's community and compassion, or whether that's justice or respect or responsibility, maybe timeliness or toughness or whatever those things are, those principles that, it maybe the values and priorities that they have, the things that are most important to them, the things they believe in, the things that they stand for. We really want to get them thinking about what is important to them deep down. And then the second one, we want to be asking them, what's your passion? And, for some people, like health and personal well-being, or teaching and helping others, or work and service and giving back, or hobbies, sports, activities. What is it that ignites that fire inside of you? Think about experiences from the past that have brought you the most joy, things that you're naturally drawn to or excited about? What makes you want to take action? What makes you want to get involved? What are you passionate about? And, based on those, what then is your purpose? What is it that, based on what you believe in, what you feel passionate about, what deep purpose will motivate you to take action, to do difficult things? How do your principles and passion maybe align with your vision of a fulfilling purpose? Remembering that, this is going to be a journey. It's okay to make changes. It's okay to grow this a little bit, but this is, I'm not going to lie, for some of the freshmen that we've done this with, it's pretty deep and it's somewhat challenging. But even if they don't nail down their lifelong purpose as a freshman, being able to, get out of just their own head and where the, this short-term focus that they're in right now, being able to think about the future, being able to think about what they stand for, what they're passionate about, can really give them a deeper motivation and a deeper drive than anything that I'm able to do by just yelling at them or say, get on the line. If we can help them connect with this, it's going to be huge for them. And then next, after that, we do the why and the wall of why activity. And I know we've had podcast episodes about this before, but a lot of times athletes start playing a sport because it's fun. But if that's the only reason that you're playing, then what are you going to do when it's not fun? Because there's plenty of times in football that it is difficult and it is hard and it is not fun. And if you have a clear reason why you're doing something, it's going to be a lot easier to stay committed to that when things start to become difficult or start to become painful. And so, and I've talked about this before, where I get hung up on the why activity. The Simon Sinek video is awesome. If you've never watched that, you should go check it out. There are some athletes that, as we talk them through, what do you participate in and why do you do these things and how do these things make you a better person and how does this make the world a better place? And we start asking them, what do you think is most important in life? And what are the principles and beliefs that guide your decisions? And what do you stand for? What would you be willing to fight for? Some athletes are going to be able to come up with just a strong why. Like, I'm driven to achieve my full potential mentally, physically, and competitively so that I can become the man or woman that I desire to be. And others aren't going to be able to articulate that. And I struggled personally with this for a long time. It was like, I don't have this deep one sentence why that's really motivating and driving me as a person. But and that was where we kind of came up with the wall of why activity. If I start piecing together these individual building blocks, I'm driven to compete. I want to be part of this family. I want to embrace challenges. They make me stronger. Maybe your players love the mental benefits of competition and the physical benefits. And, the sport is fun is a piece that's on there. It's exciting. It's fulfilling. Now, as they start to kind of pile up these blocks and start to sort of build this foundation, and it's maybe not just one sentence, but it's all of this together forms this strong, solid purpose of why I'm doing this. I think that that's also equally compelling and motivating and a driving force as things start to get difficult. So that's the why and the wall of why. And again, we've got podcast episodes about that if you want more, but we're not going super deep into any of these topics on purpose because, again, we're trying to give you sort of a bird's eye view. We're trying to sort of look at, from a year-long perspective, how do I develop a complete mental training program for football? So then the next one is full potential. And I love this. I love this activity. We were actually up at the University of Michigan listening to the Harbaugh brothers and their dad speak about full potential. And this was where we actually kind of came up with the little graph or the little chart to kind of ask our players, like, where are you at? And, if you think of like a Madden player rating, like some athletes are really strong, some are really smart, some are really fast, some are really agile. And if you piece together the mental side, the physical side, the technique side, the character, or who you are when things get difficult, the leadership side, you can start to, as you evaluate yourself in each one of those areas, you can kind of start to come up with a little bit of a individual player rating for yourself. And so we'll give our athletes this worksheet that has these 5 categories. For some of the other sports or for some of the other athletes that are out there, we'll actually have them pick those because leadership is maybe not as important if you're an individual golfer or something like that. But for football, we sat down as a staff and we said, if our players can be at their best in these 5 areas, we're going to be stinking good. And so mental, physical, character, leadership, and technique. We have the players evaluate themselves, and then with their position coaches, they go through and they actually start to figure out, okay, if the mental side of my game is an area of weakness, how am I going to set some goals? How am I going to improve in that area? If the physical side, my strength is just not where it needs to be. What's my protein intake going to look like? What extra stuff do I need to do in the weight room? Or is it just, we already have a great weight program. You just need to show up and do it. Once they are able to kind of evaluate themselves in each one of these areas, and I think it's powerful to have their position coach also chime in, then they can, start to figure out, what is it that I need to do? Which brings us to the next activity in this section, which is goal setting. And there's a million different ways to do it. There are, if you just do a quick Google search, I mean, you're going to find all kinds of goal setting activities and recommendations and suggestions. I like to start with those 5 categories, and I like to figure out which one, if I improve this right now, which one's going to give me the most bang for my buck, which one's going to help me be my best, the fastest. And we'll set some long-term, some medium, some short-term goals. We've got an action plan that's like, here's my goal, here's the start date, completion date, but then more importantly, here's the action steps that I'm going to take. We want to make sure that we don't get hung up in just setting goals, because that's not making us a better football player. Setting goals and then taking the action and following through on those is going to make us a better football player. And so, we end every episode with make your plan and put it to work. And that's really what we're doing here. We're helping our athletes come up with a plan to improve in those categories where they are maybe weak. And then how are we going to put that into action? I think a really important piece here is, who are we going to share this with? Who's going to hold me accountable? Whether that's other players in their position group, whether that's, somebody else from their class, whether that's a position coach, someone needs to be checking in on them. And one of the things that I love that we did, I don't know, we probably started doing it 6 years ago, was, all of this is done within that first January, usually. And, this activity is the first time that it goes from individual to there's now some small groups, and we usually put guys in a group of 2 or 3. I like 3 because then if somebody's absent from a workout, you've still got your other partner there. So, maybe some small groups where they can check in with each other. They can hold themselves accountable. And then the last one is Prime 5. And I wouldn't say that I necessarily do this with every single football player. But any of the football players that are weak in the area, like the mental category that we put, if there are any athletes that just don't feel like that's an area of strength for them, we want to dive in a little deeper and we want to figure out why. So like we come up with some questions for their confidence. Do they believe in themselves on the field? Do they think they have what it takes? The next one is focus. Are they able to focus on what they choose? Are they able to deal with distractions? Then motivation. Are they driven to put in the work that it takes to be elite? Do they have an expectation that they're going to be able to put in this work and that's going to produce these results in the future? Then the fourth one is physical energy control. Are they able to control their body physically? When they need to get amped up, can they get amped up? When they need to calm back down, are they able to calm back down? And then the last one is optimistic perfection. There's debate back and forth about whether we should have our athletes striving for perfection, but whether they're reaching for perfection or excellence or whatever that is that you're communicating, they're trying to do things to the best of their ability. They're not going to live up to that all the time. So are they able to stay optimistic when things don't go their way? And, that's kind of, I have them score themselves in each one of those 5 areas, just like we did on the full potential. And that really helps me kind of address and evaluate, where are we at with individuals? Where are we at collectively? If we pile all this data together, where are we at as a team? And sometimes that directs where I'm going to go with some of the future activities, or maybe doesn't change or dictate the activities that we're going to do, but certainly has an influence on what I'm emphasizing during those activities. So that's kind of the roadmap section. If I was doing that in the off season, it would be in January. If I was doing that in the summertime, that would be in June. That's where I'm starting. That's where I want to make sure guys are understanding where they're at, where they're going, how they're going to get there, who they want to be, kind of that first starting point.
All right, so that's great stuff as a team, simplifying it down into the individual goals. Why are you doing this? Because it's not easy. If it's a football program, anybody that's played football, watched football, that it's just not easy. You've got your kids figuring out what their full potential is, what their goals are. Now, what about the football piece? Because that's all, that's great stuff there with the roadmap. But now, as maybe an assistant coach would say, well, what's that to do with football?
Sure.
Where's the football at? How are we going to get better?
Yeah. And you're right. And we've actually worked with people who have said that before. And, not to allow that to downplay the roadmap section, because as you and I know, it's incredibly important. But there are certainly, some people that are like, okay, this is nice, but now we need to get into the football part of things, as you said. And the first piece of that is deliberate practice. And, so we teach them what it means to be deliberate. And, I love having an example like, a baseball player or basketball, or pick your sport and write it out. They want to improve their game. And so player A goes out and just randomly shoots some baskets and, gets the ball and dribbles and shoots some free throws and sort of does his own thing. Player B goes in there with a plan, is keeping track of, oh, I missed, or I made this many shots with my right hand, or this many layups with my left hand. They've got somebody rebounding for them, getting them the ball. There's a deliberateness to the practice. And then it's like, which player is going to improve the most? Well, the player B. But then the challenging question, which player most closely represents how you practice? Like, are you going into practice with a plan? Are you tracking your progress? Are you reflecting on it after practice? And so, we teach them, what's it look like to be deliberate, and then we will actually kind of guide them through and walk them through on a worksheet, like what's the area that they want to improve and what are the action steps with focus cues. So, if it's like my quarterback, for example, I don't want him, on a, let's say like a 4 vert play. I don't want him thinking, okay, catch the snap, take a 3-step drop while having my eyes on the outside linebacker, determining if he's walling the vertical route. If he is, I will reset my feet and set my hallway to the fallout route on that's way too much. But, I can simplify it with drop, eyes, and throw. And he knows drop, he needs to be focusing on not only the type of drop, but also the tempo of the drop. His eyes, he needs to focus on what are his defender cues that he's reading, or defender keys that he's reading rather. And, number 3, the throw, is he banging this thing in there before the safety gets there? Is it a 1 ball, a 2 ball? Is it a 3 ball up and over the top? So those are kind of the focus cues that we're using. Now let's break that up into how am I going to practice each of those? What's that look like when I'm doing a drill? And, then at the end, we have them track some feedback. We have them write down after practice, like, hey, how did it go? What did you get better at? What did you maybe say you were going to do and you thought you were going to do heading into practice, but then you forgot to actually do it? And then what adjustments do you need to make moving forward? And, I love, depending on when your state allows you to have off-season practice, I love doing something like this in February and teaching them how to have a plan going into a workout, how to evaluate how it went, and then how to make adjustments for the next time out, in hopes that they are going to take some ownership of this and they're going to get more out of their off season. Now we'll also do this in the summertime at the beginning of summer practice, because now you're not contending with as many off-season sports or things like that. And then even during the season, we will, as we're watching film, and we'll get to this a little bit more later, but as we're watching film, we'll be talking through, like, how are we going to practice this? And so the deliberateness kind of carries over throughout the whole year. The second one is a +1 mentality. And again, another topic that we have podcast episodes about, but, we want to drive home. And I love drawing like a chart. Like, if you're at a 75 and your competition's at an 85 and you both go to practice for a month and you both do what you're asked and you lift and you watch film, maybe you move up to a 76 and he moves up to an 86. And then the next month, a 77 and he moves up to an 87, but you're just continually improving at the same rate. So if there's somebody who's better than you out there and you want to improve faster, well, you're going to have to do some extra work. And so, maybe that's just plus 1 more set, plus 1 more rep, plus 1 more, drill station, plus 1 more little 10-minute segment that you stick around after practice and work on throwing your fades, or, you work on your defender keys, or whatever that looks like. But driving home the idea that just showing up and doing what's required of you is not really going to help you improve. Finding little tiny ways that you can make incremental improvements kind of on your own, there's a lot of value in that. And there's a lot of potential for you to improve quite a bit. And so, we'll help them figure out on like a calendar, when is it that I have school or work or workouts or practices or baseball tournaments or whatever. And then, based on what it is that I'm trying to improve or what I'm trying to get my +1 work on, then I can go back and figure out, okay, I've got some time here before or after practice, so I'm going to do this at this time. And, before practice every day, I'm going to do this visualization, or before I go to bed, or every day after practice, I'm going to do this drill, or whatever that looks like for them. Or I'm going to do 10 sprints, or I'm going to do some stair climbers or whatever. And, again, we want to get them used to holding themselves accountable, but then also checking in with somebody else for just that extra layer of accountability. The next one, or the third one in this kind of preparation phase, is visualization. And this can be used with the +1 work, because a lot of times, especially in the game of football, like, you can't be a Mike linebacker and necessarily do the ISO drill with you and a fullback and a running back and just pound and pound and pound on each other for hours and hours and hours after practice. But you can visualize that, and you can get all kinds of mental reps. And the thing that I really missed out on as a high school and college player, when my coaches were telling me to get mental reps, was the science behind, hey, this is legit, hey, this is impactful, hey, this will make a big difference for you, because your brain can't tell, whether you're rehearsing it mentally or you're actually going through the experience. Or at least certain parts of your brain can't. And again, an entire episode about this, previously, so we won't spend tons and tons of time on it. But from like a implementation standpoint, what are they trying to accomplish specifically? Like, what skill are they trying to improve? How can I incorporate all 5 senses into my visualization session? Because the more areas of your brain that are active, the more realistic it seems to us. Just like we've all had, the dream that you wake up from and it was like, what happened? And we've all had like that vivid nightmare where you're like, oh my gosh, I was there. Visualization has different levels of effectiveness, if you will. And then, feedback and some notes afterwards. Like, I told myself that I was going to do this. The plan going into it was this, but I forgot. Or, it felt kind of clumsy and awkward. Good. Keep doing it. Keep practicing it. It'll get better. I promise. So that's kind of how we guide them with visualization. And we'll actually, there were a couple years where on Friday after school, we would actually have them lay down in the middle of the MPIF, the indoor basketball facility, and we would allow all of the rest of the student body to drive off and go do whatever it is the high schoolers are going to do after school on Friday afternoon. And we would have them just visualize, taking the field, and then that opening kickoff or that opening kickoff return, and then visualize that first drive and, executing our game plan, things like that. It took a very small amount of time, but then our players were also leaving the MPIF together with other high schoolers. With other high school football players who hopefully were then also holding each other accountable. So something we did that I think was effective. The next one, a pre-practice routine, helping them make sure that they're prepared for practice, that they have all their stuff, making sure that they're focusing on the right things, making sure they're controlling their self-talk, what they're saying to themselves. And then also, making sure that physically they're in control of their body. And for our guys, whereas a lot of times in the pre-game routine, they needed to calm back down. In the pre-practice routine, a lot of times our guys needed to get amped up. They needed to, you've been at school all day. It's been a long day, potentially boring for some of the kids. You need to get ready to go and perform at a high level. And so, talking through what's that look like? How do you make sure that your mind and your body are ready to go? Because again, we're trying to practice deliberately. We're trying to get that +1 work in afterwards. We're trying to make sure that we're getting some pressure practice in, which we'll get to here in a little bit. We're trying to get the most out of every minute on the field. And we don't have time, especially like during game week, we don't have time to just have a bad practice on Tuesday. I mean, we only get to hit so many times. So that's something that we talk through with them and we help them come up with. The next one is pressure practice. And oh my goodness, am I a believer in this? I actually, one of the reasons why I like the no huddle, even at the school that I'm at now, where we don't have guys that are, are only going one way. We're pretty much we're pretty much you're going both ways for the majority of our athletes. I love still going fast in practice because you can apply so much pressure. You can, have an imaginary play clock that you're just counting down from 10 seconds every time. So you got receivers running to the other side of the field. You got offensive linemen that are hearing you count down 5, 4, 3, and they don't have their line calls made. And so they're trying to hurry and scurry. Guys get frustrated with each other. Guys start yelling at each other. And then it's like, perfect. We've arrived. We've done it. And so now we're going to stop practice. And this is something we got from the Navy SEALs. There were commanders that were talking about Hell Week, and we're talking about some of the boot camp stuff that they do, that if you just yell and scream and make things difficult, people are going to think you're a jerk. But if in that moment where there was pressure applied to them, we were trying to go fast, we were yelling, we were screaming, they were going to have to do up downs or some other meaningless punishment, just to put some pressure on them. Now we pause, and now we talk through. Like it only takes a minute to talk through, like what did not go well here. Like, well, I was yelling and screaming, and I got frustrated with him instead of just communicating, hey, no, that's not a 3 technique. We need to check over here or whatever. And, we talk through how many of you took a deep breath, how many of you controlled your heart rate, how many of you, did these things that we talk about all the time. And then we go and we put them in that exact same situation. And it got to the point where one of the examples I've talked about before with Ferrer, way back in season 1 was like in 7-on-7 his senior year. If I wasn't chucking dummies at him and throwing cones at his head and those big medicine ball, the big bouncy balls at him, he would get frustrated with me. If I wasn't putting him under pressure in 7-on-7, then it was too easy for him and he wasn't getting as much out of it. So applying pressure in practice so that come game day, it's like, whew, thank goodness. Now we can just relax and play. I don't have Coach Carnes screaming at me and yelling and counting down and making me do up downs in the middle of this game. The next one is breathing. And, this is helping them come up with their own customized breathing pattern. We've done so many podcast episodes on this that, I'm not going to get into it a whole bunch, but we have to teach our guys how to do it. We have to give them opportunities to practice it. We have to help them self-regulate, self-evaluate. How did it go? Did I do it? Did I forget to do it? Did I tried it once, it didn't work, so then I moved on from it. Having those conversations help. I love having seniors tell the underclassmen, hey, in this sectional championship game, it was 4th and 1, and I took a deep breath and it had this impact on my heart rate, and we made the play and we won the game. Like that's going to drive home the point with the freshmen way more than anything we could say as coaches. But each kid should know what that custom breathing pattern is, and they should be able to spout that off to you immediately. Or if your team wants to do box breathing, go for it. I think it's better to have that customized breathing pattern, but something is better than nothing. And, the box breathing is good enough for the U.S. military, so I guarantee it's going to be good enough for your football program. The next one is forced muscular relaxation. And again, we've done podcast episodes on FMR before, so I'm not going to spend tons of time on what it is. But again, this is one of those things that if you can have the seniors talk to the freshmen about how, I used to tense up, but then I did these FMR exercises and it helped me do this and have this success during a game or something like that. So impactful. Something that, you need to find a way to communicate to your underclassmen, hopefully via upperclassmen. This works.
I love that. I mean, you can't prepare enough, right? You always say the team that's prepared the best is who's going to win. One thing that I love with that, probably the biggest one, is just the visualization. Like we've talked about in the early days, your brain can't separate those two. from visualizing what's happening, what's actually happening. And so that's such a big piece of it. And then just controlling your breathing. I love those. So then that gets us to the next part of this program or this plan, which is the performance piece.
Yeah.
So what's that look like? How do I get my, I've done all this stuff. There's those kids that are like, weekday warriors. They're awesome. Now it's time. The lights have turned on. They're getting ready. How do I know, or do I know that it's going to happen?
Right. And that's the performance section. And the first activity in there is in the zone. And I love tossing this chart up there. So you got, the level of performance on the left-hand side, like from a 1, you're playing at your worst, all the way up to a 10, you're playing at your best. And, showing them there in the middle, like there's a point where you're playing at your absolute best, kind of that peak performance. And along the bottom, we've got level of energy. So starting on the far left, we've got almost asleep. And then we've got participating. And then, we're starting to get into the zone. And then we reach our peak performance. And then getting out of the zone, maybe we're a little too amped up. And then we're starting to feel anxious or flustered, or we're pressing, all the way up to like full blown panic attack on the far right hand side. And so we want our athletes to know, like, starting on the left, when I'm almost asleep, that's like a 1 level of energy, right? And we want them to know, when I'm at my best, I play at a what? For me, that was like I played at my best at like a 7. If I was up at like a 10, I was too amped up. I was pressing. I wasn't playing at my best. But like, there are some athletes that they want, in order to play at a 10, they need to be at a 10 on that energy level. And, maybe for them, if they get up into like that 14, 15 range, now they're in full blown panic attack mode. It's less emphasis on, does everyone have the same number? It's more emphasis on, what's the number that you play at where you are at your best, and then how do we help you get there? If you're not amped up enough, we're going to do these things to increase your heart rate. If you're too amped up, we're going to do these things to decrease your heart rate. And helping them come up with a plan, talking through, here's what we're going to do. I loved, as the kickoff return coach, having guys do knee tuck jumps, just getting that blood flowing. There were some guys potentially that have been standing on the sideline watching this long drive, and now we need to go back out and we need to make some blocks. We need to get a good return here. And so, helping them identify where they play at their best, I think, is important. Focus cycle is one of them, where we're helping them control their mind and body. This is one of those things that, it's like, I have a 5-minute version of this that I can just teach them how to pay attention to what they're focused on, what they're saying to themselves, and what their body's doing, control their breathing, stuff like that. And I've got an hour plus long presentation. I mean, shoot, we got an entire book they can read, that I wrote. There's podcast episodes about this. I do team trainings on this. It's really, it's less of a question of like, what's the perfect way to implement this to your team. It's more of a question of, do my guys understand the concept? If not, we need to spend more time on this. It's incredibly important in my mind. If you're only going to do one thing with your team, like if you found this podcast and it's like, shoot, we're in the middle of, like, this is the middle of September, I don't have time to go back and do all this. Perfect. Teach them the focus cycle. Go back and listen to episode number 69. Hop on the MTP Academy, join that real quick, and just teach them the focus cycle. Teach them how to control their mind, how to control their body, so that they can play at their best in these big moments. The next one that, kind of goes in this performance category is music. And I love doing the activity of write down the song and give it a rating. a 1, a 2, a 3, that would be like I'm sleepy, I'm trying to sleep or be calm or relaxed, all the way up to like a 19 or 20, like this is my hype song. Like this is what I want to listen to as I'm leaving the locker room, or this is going to be the last song that we play over the loudspeaker in the locker room, or maybe our intro song as the team takes the field, whatever that looks like. Don't just hope that your players are going to be listening to the stuff that's going to help them perform at their best. Teach them how to come up with a playlist that's going to help them stink and chill out on the bus ride. Like there are way too many 17, 18-year-old young men who should know that, we can't get juiced up and amped up on the bus ride there, that still do it. Or, guys that are just they're listening to stuff that's helping them stay calm and relaxed at a time where they should be getting amped up and ready to go. So, helping them realize what's the difference between when I'm trying to be calm, I'm trying to be focused, I'm starting to get dialed in, or I'm starting to get amped up and ready to take the field. And I love also having guys share playlists with each other. I love being able to, oh, the traffic was bad on the bus ride, so we're going to skip over the focused playlist and we're going to start getting dialed in and transitioned into amped up. That it's something that, again, we don't want to just hope that our athletes take care of. The next one is pre-competition routine, and it's the same as the pre-practice. We're trying to help them figure out, what do I need to prepare, what do I need to bring, what equipment do I need to have with me, how do I need to control my focus? What do I need to ignore? How am I going to deal with distractions? How am I going to prevent my mind from wandering too far into the future or too far back into the past? What's my self-talk plan going to be? How am I going to control that? What's the voice in the back of my mind saying on game day? And then also how to control your body physically, making sure that you're warmed up, you're prepared for competition, but then also not too far over on that edge, where you start to press, start to feel panicky, jittery, things like that. And this pre-competition routine allows them to focus on each step and going through those things that they can control, and helps them not think about how good the other team is, what the weather is like. Do I have what it takes? Am I going to be able to do this? Oh, shoot. What if, the same thing that happened last week happens again? Or, oh no, what's this college going to think? They're going to be at the game recruiting me today, whatever. We want to help them have a plan to control their mind and body heading into the game. And then the last one, I love doing this activity with football teams. It's the mentality section. And we did a podcast episode on mentality, the difference between predator mentality and prey mentality, and, helping them figure out, what is it that, where do they already have a predator mentality, the goals that they are just chasing down with passion, with drive. What obstacles are they able to overcome, to fight past? What are they chasing or hunting down or taking without permission? And then, where do they have a prey mentality? What goals are they hesitant to chase? What obstacles maybe cause them to doubt themselves, or to hesitate, or to quit? When do they maybe wait for permission from teammates or coaches, that really they just need to start going, they need to step up, they need to start chasing things down? And I think this activity is really good with the individual, but then also with the team. This is one of those activities I always like to do in the summertime at some point, and have each individual figure out, what's their mentality, where do they have a predator mentality versus a prey mentality. And then I love to revisit this like week 4, and, point out, hey, remember when we did this? Let's now come back and talk through, like, where do we have a predator mentality as a team, and where do we have a prey mentality as a team? I think that's incredibly powerful.
So after we've gone through all these, the roadmap, preparation, performance, what is next? How do I know that this is working or it's not working? Is there ways that I can go back and look? I mean, is it statistics, body language? What shows me that the work we've put in with these kids off of the field more than anything? How do I know if it's working or not, or
Yeah.
what I need to do?
And that's a that's a great question. Is this working? And I think the most powerful way to do this, and we call it the performance evaluation. The most powerful way to do this in my mind is as you are watching film, writing down what went well and what areas do I need to improve on. And I don't know of another sport where it's so nicely and neatly broken up into each of these individual little 4 to 6 second battles where we can evaluate, were we prepared? Were we focused? Were we confident? Did we do our job? Did we execute the game plan? Was it a bad call? Was it we didn't watch film enough? Was it everything was in place and I just choked because I put too much pressure on myself and I didn't use any of the focus cycle keys? Was it I need to visualize more because I'm just wrong on some of my reads? You know, not just guessing, because as coaches, we should, after watching the game, have some ideas of what we think we need to improve, right? Like if we're paying attention and doing our job. But I think it's also important because emotions are involved there, and things are very rarely as good as they seem and very rarely as bad as they seem. When things aren't going well, we have a tendency to really focus on the negative. And when things are going great, we have a tendency to think, oh, we've got it all figured out. I'm the world's best coach. And usually it's somewhere in the middle, a little bit more. Usually there are things that we can improve, and usually there are things that maybe weren't as bad as we thought. But instead of just going off of emotion or feeling or guesses, being able to watch each film clip, whether that's grade yourself, whether that's the coaches grade each position player, whether that's, I like to, with my quarterbacks, just have a running list of, why didn't this play work? Oh, because I had the wrong footwork. Why didn't this play work? Oh, I had the wrong footwork. Now all of a sudden we're starting to see a pattern like, oh, we need to do some more deliberate practice with our footwork here. Or, we were wrong on the same read 6 times. But, all these other plays, we were reading the right thing. So we need to just focus more on our smash routes. We're not reading the cover 2 corners well, or whatever that looks like. Now we can say with some certainty, here's what I can do to take the next step this next week to get closer to my full potential. And here's how I'm going to go back and use all of these preparation tools or implement some of these tools during practice. Or here's how next Friday night or next Saturday afternoon, I'm going to go back and implement some of these performance tools. I wasn't in the zone. I wasn't performing at my best until the third quarter. And by then we were too far behind. I need to use my breathing. We need to do more pressure practice. We need to use the focus cycle. We did it. We talked about it, but we didn't use it on the field. That is something that I think is so important, and it allows us to then go back and do the whole process over. And again, we're focusing on the journey. We're focusing on the process. We're not focusing on the outcome. We're saying this is where we did a great job. This is where we didn't do a great job. But here's what we're going to do about it.
That takes me back to when we had the coach from Florida Gators, Becky, when she came on and was talking about how they even filmed their players on the sideline.
Yeah, and the coaches on the side.
Coaches
yeah,
on the sideline,
you're right.
to evaluate them afterwards. And that, I mean, they're doing that at the top level. And just how important that is to go back and evaluate. Oh, we can see here in the second part of the game why we struggled, because look at everyone on the sideline. Look at the coach's body language.
Right.
So that's great stuff, that 1 through 4 for the foundational program for the whole team, which depending on what size of a football team you are, we're talking 33 kids up to 250 or whatever that size might be. That fits in for all of them. But what about This is all great, but now I've got this kid that just has, I mean, he cannot control himself with his breathing. He's losing it, or he can't get that thought out of his head of he's just not good enough because his friend or someone told him that.
Right.
Those specific, very minute but still very big problems that a kid's dealing with. How do I coach those or work on those?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, can kind of go back to the prime 5 evaluation. We can figure out, is it a confidence issue? Is it focus? Is it controlling their body physically? Is it just a motivation and drive thing? Is it they're not able to stay optimistic? They're struggling when they don't achieve perfection. And then, within each one of those, we've got some more tools at our disposal. So like, if somebody's not confident, then we're going to set some goals so that they can see some little successes. They can see some work that they've put in. They're going to earn the right to believe in themselves. We're going to do some flush and burn. We've got a podcast episode about that before that. We are going to physically remove some of those mental thoughts that we've had in our head. We're going to spend some more time in routine to get them focused on the right stuff. We're going to work on our statements. We're going to put together a success board. Again, a podcast episode about that, where we're saying, here's the things that I've done well. And instead of focusing on all the bad, I'm going to see the bigger picture of what I do well. We're going to implement some visualization, and we're going to intentionally attack that lack of confidence, and we're going to be intentional about building up the confidence. And not every athlete needs this, but you might be surprised how many athletes do need this. Another one, if they're weak in the area of focus, we're going to work on the focus activities. We're going to work on cue words. We're going to work on, again, visualization. There's a concept of like move to distraction, where instead of focusing on something and seeing something as a threat, we're just going to see it as another distraction. And rather than dwelling on, oh my gosh, what if this happens, we're just going to give ourselves permission to, well, nope, that's just a distraction. Here's what I'm going to focus on. Here's the process that I'm focusing on. And so, being intentional about helping those athletes not only focus on or identify what they want to focus on, but then how are they going to do that, and how are they going to deal with distractions? The energy, we're going back to the breathing. We're going back to forced muscular relaxation. We're maybe getting into some mindfulness stuff. Maybe it's just they haven't seen how much control they have over their heart rate, or maybe they need to practice it. Maybe they're not doing it right. Maybe you need to do the breathing with them. Maybe you need to, throw a Fitbit on them, throw a heart rate tracker on them, get them on a treadmill or an elliptical machine or a bike that they can hold on to, and they can see what their heart rate is, and help them practice controlling that heart rate with their breath. Help them take back control of their body physically. Talk to them about their sleep. Talk to them about their nutrition and their hydration, taking care of their body. The motivation, if kids are struggling in that area, we're going to go back to the predator and prey mentality. We're going to go back to the goal setting, and then updating that goal setting, reminding that frontopolar cortex that, yes, we can do this. We have a plan for this. It's not hopeless. Help them get some of that motivation, some of that drive back. Maybe being intentional about media. What are they watching? What are they listening to? The why and the wall of why, I think, is important. Maybe revisit that. Maybe, ask them about that, and you start to realize, oh, they didn't really get that. But I can help them, maybe go back through this or reflect on it, or, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Or maybe they had a question and they were embarrassed to ask in front of the group, that now in a smaller setting, they're willing to talk through. The athletes that are really struggling with the whole optimistic perfection thing, usually that's a combination of like, their perspective is wrong, and they're not really focused on the process. They're focused on the outcome. They're thinking about the wrong stuff. They're listening to the wrong voices. They've got mom or dad at home putting too much pressure on them. They're putting too much pressure on themselves. They see a mistake as just complete and utter failure. And so, I spend a lot of time also with the focus cycle with those athletes, going back through, like, what is that event? What is that thing that pops up? You make a mistake, you drop a pass. What's going on in here? What's going on physically in your body? And then helping them come up with a plan to sort of take back control. So, again, if they are weak in one of those areas and you don't know how to address that, I mean, either contact us or hop on Google. Like, the information's out there. The hard part is not the information. The hard part is having a connection with them, taking the time to get to know them, understanding what they're going through, guiding them through the activity, and then kind of walking alongside them, coming alongside them as they go through it, as they struggle through it, as they work through it, and hopefully eventually come out on the other side realizing, I can do this. I do have what it takes. It's powerful. I love it. And really, I think that kind of gives you a great starting point for a complete program for, in my mind, an entire year. Sometimes you'll teach freshmen some things and sophomores some things, and then juniors get something and seniors get something. Westfield Golf has it set up that way, and each year you go through some different training sessions. I've been a part of programs that implement everything year one, and then year two, they basically pick and choose something, each week or each month. They have a focus. I've been a part of some teams that will have players fill out their full potential, those full potential worksheets, and then each year they will basically pick out, what are the top few areas that we really need to focus on, or where do we get the most bang for our buck. And if this is something that you're just looking for sort of a bird's eye view and then you want to run with it, go for it. Those resources are absolutely out there. And if you have questions and I can help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Something that I'm really excited about that we have available now is the MTP Academy. And if you go to mtp.academy, and the link will be in the show notes, you can actually get access to every single one of these worksheets. And, right now to start off, we have the foundation program is up there. So the roadmap, preparation, performance, evaluation, all that is up there. There's a quick little coaches video in each section that basically says, here's why we're doing this. Here's why this is important. There's a worksheet that you can download that you can print off. There's a player video that you can literally just put your athletes in a room. You can hit play. I'll lead them through filling out the worksheet. And then once the worksheets are filled out, that's where the real work begins. You can have them check in with a partner, have them check in with a position coach. You can, if your team's small enough, maybe you're going to meet with every single one of them. But the MTP Foundation program, we really put together with coaches in mind so that you could just hit play and I'll teach it to your athletes and they'll fill it out. Or, you watch the video as a coaching staff, you guys figure out how you want to teach it, how you want to adapt it to your program, and you just use the worksheets. And the programs there are basically 3 levels. And so, if you're just wanting to check this out and you just want to do this, you can buy an individual membership, and it's $9. That's like cheaper than what you can eat at McDonald's for. And it comes with a free 5-day trial. And that basically just allows you to work with you, your kids, anybody in your immediate family that lives there in your house. If you decide you want to do this with your entire team, for $17, basically the cost of, going out to like Applebee's or something like that. Now you have the license to print off all this stuff for any of the athletes that you work with, for any of the athletes that you coach. And it gives you unrestricted access to all of the content. which I said right now is the MTP Foundation program, and then the MTP community that we'll get to in a little bit. And some of the other things are going to be available in the very near future. And some of you, maybe you want to buy it for your entire program, and your football team wants to buy it for the varsity program, the junior varsity, the freshman, the 8th grade, the 7th grade, the travel, the youth. If you want to get it for your whole program, that's available. If you want to get it for your whole school, I've had some travel teams reach out, they want to get it for every level or for every coach within their program. That's what that membership bundle is for. So it's the same content. It's basically just, it's giving you the license to use it, for yourself and your family, or for you as an individual coach to work with all the athletes that you work with, or for all of the coaches within your program, within your team, within your organization, whatever that looks like. And the last part that I want to talk about is the MTP community. So we're just kicking this off. Super excited about it. We debated back and forth, like, do we just make this free? Do we just make this available and open to anybody that wants to do it? And unfortunately, we got spammed with so much junk when we tried doing this in the past, that it was like, unfortunately, we're gonna put this behind a little bit of a paywall. And if it's something that you want to be a part of, if it's something that you want to join, that's out there, that's available for you. It comes with the different membership levels. We're not currently selling it on its own or anything like that, but we're really just hoping that the MTP community can be a place where like-minded coaches, athletes, parents, whoever, are able to come together, that are, they're passionate about improving the mental side of their game, giving them a place to connect, to interact, to learn from each other. Again, it's brand new right now. This is literally the first time that I've told anyone about it, as we're sitting here. So super excited. If that's something you're interested in, check it out in the show notes. So I know we're running a little bit long on time, but man, Zeke, it was great to get back at it with you. Looking forward to next week. We'll be moving on to another sport. Appreciate you being back here. And to all of you guys out there that are listening, thank you so much for continuing to support this show year after year. Looking forward to the relationships that we continue to build with you guys. Love the feedback that we get from you, that you have no idea how much that means. So thank you very much. If there's anything that we can do to help you guys out, to support you moving forward, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope the MTP Academy is an awesome resource for you guys. And until next time, make your plan and put it to work.